Hey, what's going on, gang? Nate on the Stone here. Welcome back to my channel and to the 83rd episode of The Rolling Stone. Oh boy, we are loaded for bear this week, gang. We've got a lot of important things to talk about. A lot of it is going to be rather sober. My apologies for that, especially since we are less now than a week away from the most wonderful time of the year. But unfortunately, we've got to talk about the world as it is and not how we would like it to be. So here we go. We're just gonna dive right in. This first story it's pretty eye-opening, actually, gang. And it actually raises a problem that we have as conservatives, or I guess I should say that we have as people on the right. If you say, I'm not a part of the left, but I don't like to be called a conservative, I'm not a conservative, I hate conservatism, whatever, that's another topic for another day. But if you are anywhere on the right, then we face a problem in how to phrase what it is exactly our enemies on the left are saying and doing. And yes, I said enemies, so sue me. Because on the one hand, if we keep saying, this is evil, this is evil, this is evil, look what they said, that's evil, she's evil, blah, 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 then we overuse the word and we risk desensitizing people to the actual monstrosities that they are suggesting and what they are actually working to put into practice. On the other hand, however, if we refrain from saying that this is evil, that is evil, and we try to talk about it academically, then we can very easily put a barrier between people that we're trying to reach and what the left is actually trying to do. People are going to kind of shake their heads and be like, well, okay, what's the big deal? So, but this story, which was published in the New York Times on December 5th, actually, it was updated December 15th, so it's a couple of days old, but it just started making the rounds on social media. It blew up, actually, today as of this recording, which is Friday, December the 18th, which is why we're talking about it. This story really shows evil, and I do not say that lightly, gang. This is the headline: the elderly versus essential workers. Who should get the coronavirus vaccine first? So a lot of it is actually your regular boilerplate story, right? Okay, you've got the elderly and then you've got essential workers. Because remember, we have been told since the coronavirus pandemic started in the spring that these are the two groups who were most vulnerable. You had the elderly, who had prior conditions which made them more susceptible to falling prey to the virus. Old age itself is actually a precondition for the virus hitting you much more harshly than it would a younger person. And in fact, when you are an older person, it can actually kill you, as we have been seeing, unfortunately, now with over, what is it now? I know it's well over 250,000 Americans are dead. Thank you, Chairman Xi. It's the Christmas present that keeps on giving. Which was it? Was it National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or just Family Vacation? That's the gift that keeps on giving. That's exactly what China gave to the world. The gift that keeps on giving. So we've got the elderly over here, but then we have the essential workers, the doctors, the cashiers in the stores, the fast food workers, the people who work in Walmart and Target and Walgreens. So basically, the people who work in companies, stores that pretty much have to stay open. We're talking about grocery stores, we're talking about police departments, fire departments, and of course, doctors, nurses, etc., etc. So this story is about, well, who should get the corona vaccine first? And it's very interesting just off the fly here, the elderly versus the essential workers, as if these two groups are in competition. Now, that should raise red flags right from the start, because if you're pitting two groups against each other during a pandemic, two of your own groups, two groups that live with you in your own society, there might be a problem. And sure enough, there is a huge problem, because the part that everyone on social media, was glomming onto was that this story in the New York Times actually quotes people saying that the elderly should not be given first consideration for the coronavirus vaccine because they are white. Now, that is a shocking thing to say, I know, but it's right here in black and white. And it's not just one person on the fringe. This piece quotes several people who reiterate the same basic point. So, for example, this is part of what the story says. Quote, "To me, the issue of ethics is very significant, very important for this country. Dr. Peter Sizalgi, a committee member and a pediatrics professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, said at the time, and clearly favors the essential worker group because of the high proportion of minority, low-income, and low-education workers among essential workers." So in other words, what Dr. Sizalgi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Szilagyi, if I'm mispronouncing, and if you guys know how to pronounce it, let me know please in the comment section below. I'm terrible with names. I think I've mentioned that before. But anyway, notice that he doesn't say, oh, it's because of the jobs that essential workers are doing that they need to be given first dibs on this vaccine. No. It's because they're minority, low-income, low-education workers. It's not because of what they do. It's because of all the baggage that they're carrying around on their own, whether accidentally or intrinsically. So there's that, okay? This Dr. Sizalgi, who's a pediatrics professor. But it gets even better, because he's, again, not the only one who said that. Here's another pull quote from this piece. Harold Schmidt, an expert in ethics and health policy at the University of Pennsylvania, said that it is reasonable to put essential workers ahead of older adults, given their risks, and that they are disproportionately minorities. Older populations are whiter, Dr. Schmidt said. Society is structured in a way that enables them to live longer. Instead of giving additional health benefits to those who already had more of them, we can start to level the playing field a bit. There it is again. Because older Americans are whiter, they should not be given the coronavirus vaccine. Only essential workers should be given it first because they are disproportionately white. Gang, this is one of the logical end results of critical race theory. And we've talked about critical race theory and intersectionality several times before here on the channel. And so you guys know that one of the cornerstones of critical theory is that if you are white, heteronormative, cisgendered, we would say a normal functioning human being, then you are automatically an oppressor. Your very existence is oppressing people. Minorities, people who don't look exactly like you, people who are not white, heterosexual, cisgendered, probably male too, because even if you are a white, heterosexual, cisgendered woman, okay, you're oppressed, but at the same time, you're an oppressor. It gets very, very convoluted, deliberately, I would say. But if you accept that cornerstone, if you accept that the very fact that the lighter skin tone of your epidermis, okay, to throw in a scientific word in there. If that alone makes you an oppressor, then of course, the logical jumping point from that would be, well, why shouldn't we decrease the surplus population of oppressors? Wouldn't the world be a better place if there were less oppressors in it, if there were less crypto Klansmen and neo-Nazis running amongst us? Because remember, that is literally now what the left thinks that white people are. Remember, and that would be critical theory, and then that is reinforced by the fact that the majority of white and elderly people in America voted for Donald Trump. Not only in 2016, but in 2020. And the interesting thing, Mark Stein, I believe, was talking about this. 20 years ago, when the left hated Bush, they reserved their hatred mostly for Bush, for George W. Bush. They left his voters pretty much alone. They didn't like you. They thought that you were idiots, but they weren't really coming out to get you. Now, they not only hate Trump, but they hate every single one of his voters. Every single person who supported him, whether full-hearted, enthusiastically, or just kind of, I really don't want to vote for the guy, but he's my only option, so okay, I'll pull the lever reluctantly for him. Doesn't matter. So I think that has a good deal to do with it too. But if you accept those premises, like I said, then of course, you're going to say the logical endpoint of that belief is that, of course, we should kill these people. Now, what's even more interesting from this piece is it shows what I was just talking about, the convolutedness of critical race theory. Because there's also a part in here, in this story, where people are discussing whether teachers should be considered essential workers or whether they shouldn't be. Should teachers be put in the front of the line for these new coronavirus vaccines? Are they essential workers or are they not? Okay, listen to this. Mark Lipsitch, an infectious disease epidemiologist at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health, argued that teachers should not be included as essential workers if a central goal of the committees is to reduce health inequities. Teachers have middle-class salaries, are very often white, and they have college degrees, he said. Of course they should be treated better, but they are not among the most mistreated of workers. Elise Gould, a senior economist at the Economic Policy Institute, disagreed. Teachers not only ensure that children don't fall further behind in their education, she said, but are also critical to the workforce at large. When you talk about disproportionate impact and you're concerned about people getting back into the labor force, many are mothers and they will have a harder time if their children don't have a reliable place to go. And if you think generally about people who have jobs where they can't telework, they are disproportionately black and brown. They have more of a challenge when childcare is an issue. So there you go. On the one hand, teachers should not be put in front of the line for this new vaccine because they're white. But on the other hand, they should be put at the front of the line because even though they're majority white, most teachers are white, they're teaching black and brown children, which then if they don't teach those black and brown children will they'll cause an undue burden on their parents, which will cause them to fall even more behind, which will increase the racial wage gap, etc. Blah, 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 blah. But don't you see what is happening here, gang? Critical theory started out as this kind of very foo-foo, almost academic idea, and nobody even really paid it much attention. I don't think at first, because it was just another crackpot idea that some academics had dreamed up. And of course, sure, it might work on paper, in theory, in a computer program behind the ivory walls of Harvard or Princeton or Chicago, but just wait till it got out into the real world, and then it was gonna be up for a rude awakening. It would fall flatter than a pancake. It would work just as well as communism, and people would finally realize that it was nonsensical when reality had punched them full in the jaw. Well, it turns out that the joke is on us, because instead of reality pummeling critical race theory. It's critical race theory which is right now pummeling reality with deadly results. And this should really be, this, if nothing else, is a wake-up call. We have gone, think about it like this, gang. We have gone from our elites telling us, when this whole pandemic started in the spring, March and April, beginning of May, we've gone from the elites telling us that, by God, we need to follow lockdown to the letter, because otherwise we're going to kill Granny, to the very same elites now saying, you know what, if Granny dies, then she dies. It's probably a good thing that Granny dies, because Granny's very existence in a nursing home somewhere down in Miami is actively causing the oppression of black people in Chicago and LA. That is what has happened. And it shows that these ideas, yes, they are academic, they are foo-foo, they are crazy, they might even be asinine, but you better damn well pay attention to them and give them the serious attention that they deserve. And I would even say the respect they deserve, the respect that you give to an enemy who can kill you, because that is exactly what is happening. We've gone past the left now just pushing for new math, pushing for forts to be renamed because they're named after Confederate generals, or even just pulling down statues. We have now actively reached the point where elites in society, ethicists, pediatricians, are sincerely saying in what is still considered the paper of repute, the New York Times, that a certain group of Americans should not be given the vaccine. They should actively be prevented from being given the vaccine because they're white. And if just more of them would die, then maybe we could actually start to get some racial justice in this country. They are talking about you. They are talking about your parents. They are talking about your children. Because, of course, these things never stay within their parameters. These things always expand and expand and expand and expand. Because unless you actually kill these ideas when they come, if you just go halfway along with it, or if you just wave them aside and say, it's nothing, no big deal, it's just the left being the left again, these ideas will gain strength and they will come after you next. That is story number one.